You just couldn't do it, could you, Corsair? If you just added one more digit, I could have said you've given me the best 69 of my life. It could have been wet. Corsair asked if I was interested in examining their K68 keyboard, just one step below sexy, yet still attractive in its own right. It comes with two variants, one with cherry red switches and another in cherry blue exclusive to the Korean layout, sporting matching LEDs. That is, red LEDs for the red switches and blue LEDs for the blue switches, with the matching base. Looking at the keyboard in further detail, we see that it's a relatively heavy full-size keyboard at 1.37 kilograms, sporting dedicated media controls, a brightness button, a Windows lock key, a non-braided 2.2 meter cable, a detachable rubber textured wrist rest, and 2 feet around the back for a little extra angle. Other features include 100% anti-ghosting with full key rollover, and a polling rate of up to 1000 Hertz. It pains me to say it, but it is not RGB. Corsair must be running a fever, which makes sense because the keyboard is still pretty hot. So, go ahead and cool it down. Really, go ahead. It's water and dust resistant with an IP32 rating, so if and when you spill something on your keyboard, you can ignore your little accident completely and game on. Well, how did they manage to do that? Pop off one of the keys and you'll see that the red or blue base is actually a kind of keyboard condom. Do note that the switch itself is exposed, so I wouldn't go testing your luck with the keycaps off. But Steven, it never feels as good with the rubber on. Are my beloved switches tainted? Well, have a listen. In terms of feel, they could have fooled me. I've been using Corsair's K95 RGB Platinum keyboard with cherry speed switches, which share the same actuation force as reds, and they feel pretty much exactly the same to me. Turns out, as far as I can tell, the keycap itself doesn't really come in contact with the condom, so the experience remains as pleasant as you'd expect. They sound a bit different as the condom, the rubber, the protective switch barrier thing, seems to stifle the noise a bit, so this may or may not align with your preferences. Despite not being RGB enabled, it is Q compatible. On the quest for Q, go to Corsair's site, click on support, go to downloads, and clicking on any of the keyboards that have Q software in the description should do. You shouldn't need it here, but there is a super easy to see and not at all missable unless you're slow in the head search bar up top if you get lost. With Q, you have full access to macros and a few lighting effects like the back and forth visor effect, the oddly relevant rain effect, pulse, which still looks more like breathing to me, but whatever, the wave effect, though this keyboard would probably function poorly as a surfboard, unless you're surfing the web, type lighting key, type lighting ripple, and static. You've also got advanced lighting controls like static, gradient, ripple, solid, and wave. Advanced lighting is pretty much as you'd expect it to be with a single color, and Corsair's yummy macro implementation is the same as the rest of their keyboard lineup. So, if you want to check out more on that, you can take a look at my Q tutorials linked up top or in the description below. So where does this keyboard flounder? Up until the K95 RGB Platinum, Corsair's wrist rests have always had me craving more. This one is a bit of a step back in the sense that it isn't really thick enough to satisfy me, but that's just personal preference. Having media controls are always nice, but I prefer a volume wheel to individual buttons. There is no USB pass-through, but I feel like this was due to keeping it water resistant. The non-braided cable is slightly disappointing, but it's not what I'd consider to be a deal breaker. However, your only options here are the red switches. The blue switches are for the Korean layout only, so if you're looking for something like speeds or browns, you'd be out of luck, though a brown LED keyboard might look kinda weird. Corsair didn't include a keycap puller this time around. I'm thinking that might be because you can literally wash it out, but still, a keycap puller would have been nice. Nothing wrong with pulling out, even with the rubber on. And while the lack of RGB may be considered barbaric in 2017, hold your horses. The keyboard exudes the kind of quality you'd expect from Corsair. It feels heavy and robust, and it's super vibrant. The first time I plugged it in, I said, "Wow, that's the reddest keyboard ever." If you've ever owned or used the Strafe before, it's basically that, except water resistant, plus media keys, minus bonus textured keycaps and a USB pass-through. So I guess not really that much like the Strafe. The standard Strafe retails for $100 US, and the Strafe RGB can be found on Amazon for about $120, depending on the switch you select. The K68 is on Corsair's site and Amazon also for $100 US, so depending on how many energy drinks you consume on any given day, this might be a pretty compelling option for you. So that's all I have to say about that. Like, dislike, comment, subscribe, share, leave me questions if you've got them. Thanks for watching. My name is Steven, and I am a little dim. Bye-bye. It could have been wet. So bad. Corsair asked if I was interested in examining and a polling rate of up to 1,000 hertz. It pains me to say. Get it? Hurts and pain and barrier seems to stifle that word. How odd that I goof up the word stifle. The protective switch barrier thing seems to stifle. It snifles. I don't know what that means. It reminds me of sniffles. Advanced lighting is pretty much as you'd expect it to be with a single. Corsair's wrist rests have always. What? Even with the rubber on. How far is too far exactly? The keyboard exudes. Damn it.